keeping our tabs on the developments with the judges as they were arrested by the DSS. We're joined now by Boma Ozobia, who is the former president, Commonwealth Lawyers Association. She joins us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. And let's start with getting your opinion about what you think of this whole scenario going on, whether or not they should be suspended, the DSS arresting them rightly or wrongly. What's your impression?
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. I am really saddened by this whole scenario. Nonetheless, what I can say is it is not peculiar to Nigeria. Judges are human beings, and they are members of the society. So we're talking about corruption in the military, we're talking about corruption in the political sphere, in the medical sphere. Certainly you have corruption in the legal profession and in the judiciary. In terms of whether the arrest was properly carried out or not, there's been so much commentary on it. What I will add to the debate is, let us also look at this from the perspective of the litigant. The judges have rights. You have to separate the three arms of government, no doubt. But the most paramount interest has to be the interest of the litigants, the people who use the court system, the citizens of Nigeria who rely on the courts as the last bastion, the last hope of the common man. And from that perspective, it's clear to me that whilst the investigation is ongoing, and no doubt each individual judge that stands accused is innocent until proven guilty, nonetheless, they cannot continue to sit whilst the investigation is ongoing. Because from the litigant's perspective, I think that undermines the confidence of the public.
So you clearly think that you clearly think they should be suspended. We
have to be seen.
You clearly think they should be suspended?
There are two different things here. A suspension is an act of the NJC. I'm coming from the moral perspective. As a judge, as a lawyer, when we're called to the bar, we are supposed to be fit and proper persons. It's a requirement of this profession and not every other one. Judges are referred to as my lord, your lordship, your worship. So they have to take the higher moral ground. You don't wait for the NJC to suspend you. You recuse yourself whilst the investigation is ongoing. That's what I would do if I was in that position.
What if...
innocent until proven guilty, no doubt. But...
You know, at the moment, they haven't been suspended. They haven't stepped aside. If you can hear me, they haven't been suspended. They haven't stepped aside. And there are those who are suggesting that they should then step aside. But since that hasn't happened, would you suggest that somebody, maybe the NJC, then decide, okay, please step aside?
Well, I agree with the position of the Nigerian Bar Association and the senior advocates of Nigeria who have said that they ought to step aside or stand down, with whatever terminology you want to use, until such time as these investigations are concluded, whether it ends in a prosecution, successful or not. But whilst the process is ongoing, you cannot continue to sit in judgment over individuals, these cases, in some cases involving life and liberty, personal property, and expect the litigant to have confidence in the system and confidence in your judgment, whilst there's that big question mark over your character.
Now, there's a school of thought.
From that perspective, I think they should step down.
All right. There's a school of thought that says, well, the intention, or what if the intention is to get them out of the way? Will that then, because they're presiding over or have ruled against certain cases or certain persons, what if at the end of the day they step aside? And they also argue that nobody knows how long or when this will be concluded. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years. So wouldn't we prejudge them if they were then to step aside?
No, it's not about prejudging at all. Let me use the analogy of a school to make this point clearer. You know, let's say there's a dispute of some sort between the parents and the teachers. The interest that is paramount is the interest of the children. The school was set up for the children. Similarly, the judiciary is there because of the common man, because of the Nigerian citizen. So where there's a conflict of interest, the citizen's interest must be paramount. And from that perspective, there's no question in my mind that whilst this investigation is ongoing, the individual judges that are affected should not be sitting in judgment until this is concluded, regardless of whatever motive might have been attributed to the executive arm in carrying out the investigation. You know, the citizen's interest has to be paramount, and it is not in their best interest to have a situation like this where judges are being investigated for such serious allegations, innocent no doubt, and I'm not in any way saying that they are guilty or in you know, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not saying that at all. But the key thing is, whilst the process is ongoing, let us not undermine the confidence of the litigating public in the judiciary.
You know, talking about confidence here now, what really comes to mind is what you just tried to highlight, which has to do with perception. And in trying to keep up with that, it will mean that Nigerians will love to have a better standing with the judiciary, and that is the more reason some are also saying they should step aside. But as a lawyer, now we're trying to look at morality here. A bit of it definitely will come to play. How would it feel standing before any of the judges and you standing there with your client? Do you think you would feel justified or get justice at the end of the day? Because some are saying that whether you like it or not, whether we have the NJC coming on this or not, by now they should have done the honorable thing of stepping aside on their own.
That's my point precisely. I'll give you an example. Last year, we had a Commonwealth Law Conference in Glasgow. Unexpectedly for some of the judges who attended that conference, because it was a last-minute decision, we had Julian Assange, who's WikiLeaks chap, as a speaker at one of our sessions. The judges from the United Kingdom, that's England and Wales, Scotland, walked out of that conference because they said we will not be seen to be participating in a conference where a fugitive from justice speaks, regardless of whether he has been convicted or not. That is taking the moral high ground. And that is what I am advocating in this situation. that the judges that are involved take the moral high ground, step aside until the investigation is over. If you're vindicated, the Nigerian public will be there to see. If you're not, we will also be there. But whilst the process is ongoing, let us not undermine the confidence of the litigating public in the system.
Should we just leave it to them taking the moral high ground, or we should think about ways to institutionalize these things? For instance, at what point do they step aside? Is it when the allegations begin to fly, or when they are charged to court? And if we're really fighting corruption holistically, should governors as well, or presidents or whoever, if they're accused, should they also follow the same path?
We have new guidelines which were just released by the NJC. I believe those guidelines will are taking steps towards closing the gap between the current ability to regulate situations like this, although, as they've said, the guidelines were being worked on well before this incident. Nonetheless, I would say I can't speak for politicians and governors and so on. Neither do we have the same expectation of them. We call ourselves a noble profession. We refer to judges as my lords, your worship. And to whom much is given, much is expected. There is no question in my mind that we have a higher expectation of the judiciary than of any other arm of government. They are the only ones with the right to deprive you of your liberty, of your life, depending on what is placed before them in court. They have the power of life and death. Yes, the governors can grant you a reprieve. You know, they have the prerogative of mercy. But it's not the same thing. And that's the point I'm making. When you become a politician, you're not asked if you're a fit and proper person. When you become a lawyer, you are. And we have to hold ourselves to that standard.
All right.
All of us.
All right, well, we'll take a minute, but we'll come back and examine even the guidelines that you highlighted in a moment. Do join us again.